Question number 8, Denise Roche.
Thank you, Mr Speaker. My question is to the Minister for Workplace Relations and Safety and asks, what is the size of the gap between the New Zealand minimum wage hourly rate and the Australian national minimum wage hourly rate?
Speaker.
Honourable Michael Woodhouse.
Well, Mr Speaker, I'm pleased to advise that today the gap between the two countries has closed thanks to the increase in the minimum wage, which will put $1,000 a year in the pockets of minimum wage earners. An absolute measure of the gap between Australia and New Zealand is a little difficult due to changes in exchange rate and the fact that Australia has minimum rates for youth and disabled. But if we take the adult minimum wage of both countries today, the gap is about $2.50. That compares with $4.16 in April 2008 after the last Labor Green government's minimum wage increase.
Supplementary.
Supplementary question, Denise Roche.
Has his government dropped its 2008 goal to achieve pay parity with Australia? And if not, why has the average weekly earnings gap increased by $45.38 under national?
Mr Speaker.
Honourable Michael Woodhouse.
Mr Speaker, I'd need to check the members' data because they are not the same as mine. The gap in both the adult minimum wage and the average and median wages is closing, as we committed to. And the member doesn't need to take my word for it. She can take the word for the tens of thousands of New Zealanders who realise the grass is actually greener on this side of the ditch and are coming home.
That's right. Point of order.
Point of order, Denise Roche.
Thank you, sir. I seek leave to table this document showing that the average weekly earnings gap between New Zealand and Australia, adjusted for purchasing power, has grown by 45...
Order. Source of the document is now all
put together for me by Parliamentary Library, sir.
I've started a pattern here I might well regret. I'll put the leave and it'll be over to the House. Leave us sought to table that Parliamentary Library document. Is there any objection? No. Supplementary question, Denise Roche.
Thank you, sir. How much would the average earnings gap between Australia and New Zealand reduce if his government simply paid the same minimum wage as Australia?
Honourable Michael Woodhouse.
Well, Mr Speaker, I don't have that data to hand because the primary question was actually about the minimum wage. But what I can tell the member is if the minimum wage moved to the adult Australian minimum wage, the cost would be 15,000 jobs. 15,000 jobs, and this government is not prepared to throw people on the scrap heap just for a whim.
Entry, sir. Supplementary.
Order. Supplementary question, Denise Roche.
Thank you, Mr Speaker. Would he agree that if New Zealand's economy relies on paying 300,000 people wages so low they are trapped below the poverty line, it's not really an economy that's working for all of us?
Honourable Michael Woodhouse.
Well, I would agree with the member that the goal is to create an economy that means that all employees are paid appropriately for their skills and experience, and I also note that under this government the adult minimum wage has gone up by more than $110 a week. That's $5,700 a year. But you can't get higher wages with the stroke of a pen. Otherwise you'd be putting the minimum wage up to $30, $40, $50 an hour.
Order. Question number 9, Dr. Parmjeet Parmar.
Thank you, Mr Speaker. My question is to the Minister for Workplace Relations and Safety. How is the government